Valerie had always known she was the outsider in her own family, but she never expected to be deliberately erased. At 34, she had built a respectable career as a corporate lawyer in Philadelphia, a sharp contrast to her younger sister, Olivia, whose life as a travel blogger was filled with luxury and adventure, all funded by their doting parents. The parents had always made it clear who the golden child was. Olivia could do no wrong, while Valerie, despite her hard work and dedication, was merely tolerated. It had always been that way, but Valerie had convinced herself that family was family, and no matter how much she was overlooked, she still belonged. That illusion shattered on Christmas Eve. The night before, Valerie had received a simple text from her mother: "We're canceling Christmas dinner. Roads are too icy. Stay safe, honey." Disappointed but understanding, she accepted the excuse. After all, winter storms in Philadelphia were unpredictable. She settled in for a quiet evening, alone, pouring herself a glass of wine and flipping through holiday movies to distract herself from the loneliness. She told herself it was fine, that it was just another holiday, that she wasn't missing much. Then, at 4 p.m., while mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, her stomach dropped. There, on Olivia's profile, was a series of photos captioned, "Merry Christmas, family traditions with my favorite people." The pictures showed her entire family gathered in Olivia's beautifully decorated dining room. Her parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, even distant relatives she hadn't seen in years were there, laughing over a feast, opening gifts, and toasting with glasses of wine. The worst part? Through the large windows in the background, she saw clear skies and dry streets. There was no ice storm. There never had been. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through more photos, her heart pounding with a realization more painful than she had ever imagined. Her family hadn't forgotten her. They hadn't simply overlooked inviting her. They had deliberately lied to her, intentionally excluding her from a gathering that was supposed to be about togetherness. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. In that moment, something inside Valerie cracked. Years of quiet acceptance, of pushing down the hurt, of making excuses for them, it all unraveled at once. This wasn't just about Christmas. This was about every canceled family gathering, every moment she had been pushed aside. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't going to let it slide. Valerie sat frozen, her phone clutched tightly in her trembling hands as she stared at the pictures on Olivia's Instagram. The festive decorations, the beautifully set dining table, her parents smiling at Olivia as she carved the turkey. It was all so meticulously perfect. Perfect, except for one glaring omission: her. The sharp sting of betrayal burned in her chest as she scrolled through more images. In every picture, they looked happy, comfortable, as if nothing was amiss, as if the daughter they had chosen to lie to and leave behind had never even existed. A dozen thoughts rushed through her mind at once. Maybe they had planned it last minute. Maybe they just forgot to text me. But the pit in her stomach told her otherwise. She knew her family too well. This was deliberate. They hadn't forgotten. They had made a conscious choice to exclude her. And if it weren't for Olivia's social media post, they would have expected her to never find out. Fury bubbled up inside her. She needed answers. Without hesitating, she called her mother. The phone rang twice before her mother's usual cheery voice answered. "Hi, honey. How was your Christmas?" Valerie took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice steady. "You tell me," she said coldly, "because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you had a wonderful time at Olivia's house." A beat of silence. Then her mother let out a nervous chuckle. "Oh, well, it was all very last minute, sweetheart. We didn't think you'd want to come anyway. You always get so busy with work." The casual dismissal was like a slap to the face. "Last minute," Valerie repeated. "You told me Christmas dinner was canceled, that the roads were too icy. But I just saw pictures of clear skies and dry streets." Her mother sighed, the fake warmth in her tone faltering. "Valerie, don't make this into a big deal. Olivia wanted everything to be perfect. You know how you are at these gatherings. So quiet, always making things tense." Valerie's grip tightened on her phone. "Tense?" she echoed. her voice shaking with barely restrained anger. I make things tense? Is that why you've been lying to me for years? Is that why every time I was told plans were canceled, you were really just leaving me out? Another pause, this time a little longer. Then, in the same exasperated tone her mother had used all her life whenever Valerie voiced her feelings, she sighed, Sweetheart, you're being too sensitive. That was it, the final straw. For years, Valerie had convinced herself that her family's behavior was unintentional, that maybe she just wasn't as fun as Olivia, that if she tried harder, she'd be included. But this wasn't an oversight. This was a pattern, a deliberate, calculated exclusion. And now that she was confronting them about it, they weren't even apologizing. They were just gaslighting her, dismissing her pain as if it meant nothing. Her mother kept talking, offering empty excuses, but Valerie wasn't listening anymore. Something inside her shifted, a deep, unshakable certainty settling in. She was done making excuses for them. As soon as the call ended, she opened her laptop, a new determination driving her. If they had been lying about this, what else had they been hiding? It was time to find out the truth. And she wasn't going to stop until she had all the answers. Valerie sat in stunned silence, staring at the blank screen of her laptop, her mother's dismissive words still ringing in her ears. You're being too sensitive. That single phrase unraveled years of memories, peeling back layers of denial she had built to protect herself. How many times had she swallowed her hurt, convinced herself she was imagining things? How many times had she excused the cold shoulders, the forgotten invitations, the casual dismissals? Now, looking back, the pattern was undeniable. She had never truly belonged in her family. Not in the way Olivia did. The signs had been there for years. She remembered the time in high school when she had stayed up all night studying for a math competition. The next morning, she eagerly told her parents she had won first place, but their attention was elsewhere. Olivia had just gotten a role in the school play. They had showered her with praise, telling her she was a star, while Valerie's accomplishment had barely warranted a nod. Then there was college. Valerie had been practical, studying law and working part-time to avoid burdening her parents financially. Meanwhile, Olivia had flitted from one interest to another, dropping out of business school after 2 semesters, then trying photography, then fashion design, and finally settling on being a travel blogger. Every time she failed, their parents had bailed her out, calling her creative and fearless, while criticizing Valerie for being too rigid. But the memory that hurt the most was her father's surgery 5 years ago. Valerie had taken unpaid leave from work to care for him, handling his medications, driving him to doctor's appointments, and cooking his meals. Olivia had shown up once, just long enough to snap a few pictures with him in his hospital bed, posting them with a heartfelt caption about cherishing family moments. A few weeks later, Valerie overheard her mother telling a family friend, Olivia has been such a rock for us during this time. We're so lucky to have her. Valerie had stood in the kitchen, frozen, as the realization washed over her. No matter what she did, she would always be second to Olivia. Even last Thanksgiving, she had spent hours helping her mother prepare dinner, only to hear her gush to relatives about how Olivia had done all the work. Valerie had forced a smile, ignoring the lump in her throat, convincing herself that it didn't matter. Family is family. But now, staring at those Christmas photos, she knew the truth. It did matter. It always had. She needed confirmation. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through old messages, looking at past holiday cancellations. There was always a reason. Bad weather, last-minute changes, not enough room at the table. But the more she searched, the more she realized the truth. She had never been an afterthought. She had been an intentional exclusion. A notification popped up, a message from Mr. Calloway, a retired estate planner who had handled her grandfather's finances. They hadn't spoken in years, but she had reached out in a desperate attempt to piece things together. Valerie, I've been meaning to talk to you, the message read. There's something you should know about your inheritance. Her heart pounded. Inheritance? She had never received a dime, but before she could even process what that meant, Another memory hit her. Her parents insisting she sign a stack of papers when she was 18, saying it was just routine legal paperwork in case of emergencies. Her stomach twisted. What if it hadn't been? The lies went deeper than she had ever imagined, and for the first time, she wasn't afraid to uncover them. She was ready. Valerie's heart pounded as she neatly arranged the documents on her dining table: bank statements, legal records, and evidence of fraudulent transfers, proof that her parents had stolen what rightfully belonged to her. For years, she had ignored the signs, made excuses for their behavior, but not anymore. The weight of their betrayal sat heavy on her chest, but beneath it burned something stronger: resolve. She had invited them, her parents and Olivia, for family discussion, and they had accepted, probably expecting an apology, a plea for forgiveness. They had no idea what was coming. At exactly 3 p.m., the doorbell rang. She took a deep breath and opened it, forcing herself to remain composed. Her mother was the first to step inside, her usual warm smile in place, as if the Christmas debacle had never happened. "Oh, sweetheart," she cooed. "It's so good to see you. We've missed you." Her father followed, stiff and serious as always, and Olivia strolled in last, her expensive coat draped over her shoulders like royalty. She barely spared Valerie a glance before dropping onto the couch with a sigh. "Finally," Olivia muttered, "we can move past all this drama." Valerie's jaw clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "Take a seat." She watched as they settled in, her mother looking around expectantly. "So, what's this all about?" she asked lightly. "A fresh start?" Instead of answering, Valerie slid 3 identical folders across the table. "Before we talk, I want you to read these." Her father's face darkened as he flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning the financial records, the property transfers, the account statements, all showing how they had siphoned away her inheritance, redirecting it to Olivia. Her mother's fingers tightened around the pages, her expression shifting from confusion to panic. Olivia, slower to grasp the gravity of the situation, simply frowned. "What is this supposed to be?" she scoffed. Valerie folded her arms. "Evidence." She met her father's gaze head on. "I know everything. About the inheritance Grandpa left for me, about how you took it. The bank records show it all." Her mother forced a nervous laugh. "Valerie, sweetheart, you're misunderstanding. We were just—" "Don't lie to me," Valerie cut in sharply. "You stole from me. You had me sign away my rights when I was 18, telling me it was just for emergencies. You sold off assets meant for both Olivia and me, and instead of using it to help us equally, you funneled everything into Olivia's lifestyle." Her father's hands clenched into fists. "You don't understand the sacrifices we've made for this family." "Sacrifices?" Valerie's voice dripped with disbelief. "You mean the years I spent helping you pay off your mortgage while you hid the fact that I had an inheritance? Or when I took care of Dad during his surgery while you painted Olivia as the supportive daughter? Or maybe all those times you told me family events were canceled while you celebrated without me?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Which sacrifice are we talking about?" Olivia, finally catching up, paled. "Wait, what money?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Valerie turned to her. "The money that funded your entire career, your trips, your failed businesses. Where do you think it came from? Mom and Dad's savings?" She shook her head. "No, Olivia, it was mine. They stole it from me to give to you." Her sister's mouth opened and closed, at a rare loss for words. Then, weakly, she said, I, I, I didn't know." "Yes, you did," Valerie snapped. "You knew the money was coming from them, and you never questioned it. You never once wondered why I was working myself to exhaustion while you lived without consequences." Her mother reached for her hand, her face lined with desperation. "Valerie, honey, we're family. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just wanted to give Olivia a chance to succeed." "At my expense," Valerie interrupted coldly. "But here's the thing, Mom. I'm done being your backup plan, your safety net, your afterthought." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You have 2 options. One, you return what's left of my inheritance immediately, sign a legal confession admitting what you did, and we settle this quietly. Or two, I take this to court. Her father stood abruptly, his face red with fury. You would destroy your own family over money? No, Valerie said firmly, standing too. You already destroyed this family when you decided I didn't matter. Now you're just dealing with the consequences. Silence filled the room, her mother's eyes filled with tears, her father seethed with anger, and Olivia sat frozen, her carefully curated world crumbling around her. Finally, her father spoke, his voice low and dangerous. You'll regret this. Valerie met his glare without fear. No, I won't. She walked to the door and held it open. You have 48 hours to decide. If I don't hear from you, my lawyer will. Her mother whispered, Valerie, please. But Valerie didn't waver. Goodbye, Mom. With that, she shut the door behind them, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly free. The morning after the deadline passed, Valerie kept her promise. With the folders of evidence in hand, she met with Christine Parker, a well-respected lawyer specializing in estate fraud. As Christine reviewed the documents, her expression grew increasingly serious. This isn't just a case of financial mismanagement, she said. It's deliberate fraud and embezzlement. Your parents didn't just take your inheritance. They systematically stole from you over the years, forging documents and misusing their power of attorney. The words solidified what Valerie already knew. This wasn't just a family dispute. This was a crime. And now it was time for justice. Christine wasted no time. Within hours, formal legal notices were sent to Valerie's parents, demanding restitution. Instead of complying, they doubled down, attempting to cover their tracks. Valerie quickly discovered that her father had closed certain bank accounts, her mother had deleted years of financial records, and Olivia was frantically trying to scrub any evidence of her lavish lifestyle from social media. But none of it mattered. The proof was already in Valerie's hands, and no amount of backtracking could erase the truth. Soon, the situation spiraled beyond their control. A court order froze her parents' remaining assets, pending investigation. When news of the lawsuit leaked within their social circle, the family's pristine reputation crumbled. Valerie's father, once a respected businessman, was forced to resign from his firm to avoid public scandal. Her mother, active in several charity boards, was quietly removed from leadership positions. And Olivia, whose online brand thrived on the image of a carefree, independent woman, found herself rapidly losing sponsorships as whispers of financial fraud spread through her industry. Desperate, her parents tried to paint Valerie as the villain. They reached out to relatives, claiming she was tearing the family apart over money. But the evidence was irrefutable, and the same family members who had blindly supported them before now fell silent. Some even reached out privately, apologizing for the years they had overlooked Valerie's treatment. The court proceedings moved quickly. Under mounting legal pressure, her parents accepted a plea deal, agreeing to full financial restitution in exchange for avoiding prison time. Olivia lost everything: her apartment, her sponsored travel deals, her self-crafted image of success. And for the first time, Valerie felt something she had never experienced before. Not just victory, but validation. The truth had finally won, and so had she. 1 year later, Valerie sat by the window of her new apartment in Seattle, watching the snow fall softly outside. The legal battle was over, the restitution payments had begun, and her parents, once so powerful in their social circles, had faded into obscurity. Olivia had been forced to take a regular office job, a far cry from the glamorous lifestyle she had flaunted for years. Most of the extended family had gone silent, and surprisingly, Valerie found she didn't miss them. Instead, she had built a new life, one filled with genuine friends, colleagues who respected her, and a sense of independence she had never known before. Her phone buzzed, a message from Olivia. We should talk. For a moment, Valerie stared at the screen, considering. Then, with a quiet smile, she locked her phone and set it aside. She no longer needed their validation, their apologies, or their approval. She had something far more valuable: freedom. And this time, she wasn't looking back. The story of Valerie teaches us an important lesson about self-respect, independence, and the value of setting boundaries. For years, Valerie believed her family's mistreatment was a result of misunderstanding or her own shortcomings. She tried to gain their approval by working harder and sacrificing her own dreams. However, the truth came crashing down when she discovered her family had been intentionally excluding her and stealing from her for years. This revelation was a wake-up call, showing her that no amount of effort or sacrifice would change their behavior. Valerie's journey teaches us that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves is to walk away from relationships that are toxic, no matter how hard it may be. The pursuit of acceptance from those who don't value us is a never-ending cycle that only leads to more hurt. By confronting the truth and standing up for herself, Valerie broke free from the manipulation and reclaimed her life. The lesson here is clear: never compromise your self-worth for the approval of others. True love, respect, and loyalty should come from those who value and support you unconditionally, not from those who seek to control or undermine you.